in Canada, in BC Public Service, if you are applying for any role, most times you are supposed to do an assessment before the interview stage. That's different for private organizations. So she's talking about if you are supposed to do an assessment before the interview stage, and most times, as a policy analyst, assessment
Hello, mommy.
is to write a briefing. So let's talk about the so the most
I've
important
heard.
thing
Bye
about
bye.
briefing notice it has to be concise, right? So it has to be something that it has to be something that a minister takes and can read it in like 5 minutes, because it has to be as simple and as brief as possible. So briefing notes, based on my experience, there are two major briefing notes.
Yeah.
It could be for information or for decision. Like when we talked about policy analysts and what they do, we've already spoken about where they give advice and recommendations, right?
Yeah.
All this is done by written communications, and it's done through briefing notes. So most times, as a policy analyst, if you want to,
Mommy said you said that you're going to send money to my account to send to that generator man. He has been calling her.
if you're working in government, you have to write a briefing note. You have to brief them about that policy. So if whatever you're doing is just
I'm going to
information,
send it to my
so there are sometimes when the minister is going
send it to my access. My access.
or has a conference somewhere, and you have to tell the minister about a new policy that just came out or an existing policy. So that's just for information. So you have to explain that policy in as simple terms as possible, that the minister can just, once they get the question, they can look at it and understand what you're saying and be able to answer the question. So as concisely as possible. Then the one for decision, there's more work put into that, because you're writing this note because whoever is going to read this note has to make a decision based on whatever you've written in that note. So first of all, you have to understand that if you're writing this note, you have to ask a question that what's the end goal, right? Who am I writing this note for? And most times in the government, for example, or in anywhere, I think there's usually a format for briefing notes.
Okay.
There's usually a format for briefing. They'll give you a template that you have to follow to write a briefing note. You obviously they will tell you for who you're writing it to. You have the title of the briefing note. You have key points in the maybe first section. You have discussion, and then you have options if you're writing it for decision. So when it comes to the key point, you have to ask a question like, why has the note been requested? Who am I writing it for? Is it for decision? Is it for information? What is the purpose of writing this note? Given the context and scenario, what exactly does the minister really need to know, right? So once you've written all that, you have to look at, have I identified the various factors that I need for this note? But in most cases, if you are already a policy analyst, there is 90% chance that whatever you're writing about has been done before.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because in most cases, you are reviewing existing policies
Yeah.
and trying to make it better, which means somebody has done something on them before. So you just have to like go and see what has been done before and then update it.
Just-
But let's assume that you're not a policy analyst yet.
Yeah,
You're
I'm
trying
get
to
a
become
job.
this thing.
Yeah, like what format do I even put in?
The format you need to put in is, they would give you the format, because format varies depending on where you're applying to.
Okay.
Right? So most times, based on my knowledge, if you're applying to a policy analyst role and they're asking you to write a briefing note, they would give you a format. They wouldn't want you to just go out there and write something for them. They'll give you a format as to how you should write it. And most times, you just need to make sure that you are as concise as possible. And you have to make sure that you give enough information.
Yeah.
Not too little, not too much, but just right.
Okay.
So, yeah, right.
So I'm just thinking, like some employer can be really funny. Let's say they did not provide me with a format.
Yeah.
Like what can I see? It's more like saying, oh, you can see something like recommendation, or you should, if you're not provided with a format, these are things you should at least have.
Yeah.
Like a title, a background, analysis, recommendation, something like that.
Yeah. So if you're not provided the format, it is 1 out of 10. You obviously have to understand why you're writing notes. Is it for information or decision?
So let's say for decision.
If it's for
Most
decision,
times it's
decision.
Yeah.
So if it's for decision, then your title, the title of your notes, so whatever title you're giving it,
Okay.
who are you writing it for? So it's for
My WhatsApp.
it's for Minister of Transportation, Minister,
You send me a message to my WhatsApp.
and then you start with the background. The background has to be. Most times, the way I write my briefing notes usually like in points. So most times the background should be just a brief background of whatever you're talking about. If they say you should talk about, give a decision about, for example, let's walk through a briefing note. Give you a decision about the, let's say, relevant cases, COVID. the
COVID among the black society, something like that. Like, how can we improve the health?
or how can we
of-
improve vaccination is very
Oh,
a
yeah.
very distant topic, but so let's not talk about that. Let's just say what should we suggest for the number of isolation days based on the current COVID
Yeah.
climate?
Yeah.
Right? So you cannot just jump into saying, oh, I recommend that let's do 2 days, blah blah blah. You have to talk about